Based on the massive popularity of my last video on the topic, I've decided to turn this type of video into a series. Basically, the videos will be discussing how to get the best results with different cameras, so let's dive in and talk about the iPhone. Objectively, an iPhone is a terrible camera. It has a fixed aperture, fixed focal length, a tiny sensor, and only the newest generations have features like optical image stabilization. That said, lots of people use them because, as the saying goes, the best camera is the one you have. Armed with that knowledge, let's dive into the three categories I'll discuss in these videos: settings in the camera, equipment to use, and editing options. Because of the serious limitations of using an iPhone, I'll also add a section discussing the types of situations to avoid to get good results. There really aren't that many options within the native camera app. About the only thing worth changing is to set the camera to record at the highest resolution possible. In my case, that's 4K. If you want more options, then a third-party app is a great thing to have. In my case, I use Filmic Pro, which is very popular. Within the app, you have the options to change the frame rate, resolution, bitrate, and even options for focus, exposure, white balance, and aspect ratio. To get the most cinematic results, you'll want the highest resolution possible, a frame rate of 24 FPS, and the highest bitrate possible. If you're planning on using a different aspect ratio than 16:9, you can also set guidelines for that aspect ratio. I would recommend setting the white balance, focus, and exposure manually. With the exposure, you'll want to try and keep the shutter speed at 1/48, but obviously getting proper exposure is more important than getting a certain shutter speed. There's a lot of equipment you can find that's marketed to iPhone filmmakers, but there's really only three types of equipment I'm going to discuss here: lenses, stabilizers, and microphones. To start out with, let's talk about lenses. In general, getting a lens for your iPhone isn't a great idea. Any lens you put on the camera will add distortion and decrease the amount of light getting to the sensor, meaning an overall lower quality image even if you spend $500 on a lens. Lenses can be useful for certain effects. For example, you may want a wide angle look or a telephoto look. Outside of that, I would recommend avoiding lenses as they will only decrease the quality of your image. When it comes to stabilizing your iPhone, you have lots of options as well. At the very least, you should get a tripod so you can get steady shots. If you don't have an iPhone with optical image stabilization and you want to get some handheld shots, having a gimbal like the DJI Osmo Mobile can also be very useful. Lastly, let's talk microphones. Rode makes several great mics that are worth looking into, including a lavalier mic, an XY mic, and a directional mic. The directional mic is likely the most useful of the bunch, but it's up to you to look at the options and decide what will work best for what you're doing. Before we talk about editing iPhone footage, let's talk about the best places to use an iPhone. There are two primary things you want to avoid to get the best results: dark areas and areas with high dynamic range. Avoiding dark areas is pretty self-explanatory. iPhones have tiny sensors, so they don't do very well in low light. To avoid having very noisy images, you'll want to shoot with as much light as possible. Outdoors during the daytime is about the best place to shoot with an iPhone. Avoiding high dynamic range situations can be a little trickier. Basically, you don't want both very bright and very dark areas in an image, because an iPhone will tend to either overexpose or underexpose certain areas. A common situation is filming by a window, where the light inside the building will typically be much darker than sunlight coming through the window. Adjusting the camera or the lighting to avoid these types of situations is a good idea. Filming outdoors in overcast conditions during the daytime is ideal conditions for an iPhone. The sun will provide lots of light and the clouds act as diffusion to provide very even and soft lighting. For editing, I'm going to recommend the same three tools I did in my last video: DaVinci Resolve, the Magic Bullet Suite, and Film Convert. I've done an entire video on how to get good results with Resolve and Magic Bullet, so I'll just link that and stick to discussing Film Convert. Film Convert is a film emulation tool that will emulate the look of celluloid film with digital footage. You can also download custom profiles that are tailored to different cameras, including one for the iPhone. Using Film Convert is as simple as slapping the plugin on your footage, selecting the iPhone picture setting, and choosing a film stock and size that suits your project. The colors and grain will make your footage look much more cinematic. One quick note about the plugin is that if your footage has lots of noise, you may want to denoise it before you add film grain. Anyway, that's it for this video. If you're interested in an iPhone or any of the other products I mentioned, feel free to check those via the links in the description. If you like this video, if it helped you to get those cinematic results with your iPhone, hit the like button. If not, feel free to hit the dislike button. Feel free to check me out on social media, Facebook and Twitter. And also, feel free to subscribe to this channel if you're interested in more videos like this. Oh, fuck.